Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Steven Brown, and in today's video, guys, sort of like a part two or a continuation to the conversation that I was having in the previous video here on this channel, talking about if the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be better or worse than what they were last season. And I'll leave that linked above the screen if you haven't already saw that. But in today's video, I kind of wanted to talk about the other side of that conversation and to highlight some things that I think are wrong with the team and talk about things that have gone wrong with the team and explain some, I guess, logic or the approach behind them at least. Because the last few seasons, it's obviously been we can and we will, and they haven't. So there's been a lot of pushback behind the idea of giving four forwards that much money. But with me, myself, I always like to try to make the most of the situation that we're in. So if you're watching these videos, you're naturally going to get a positive lens or outlook from me. It's not that I necessarily agree with that or that's the way that I would have done things. It's just me trying to make the most of the situation. So they made the decision to hand out big money to four forwards, right? To occupy pretty much half of your salary cap into four players. So where do they go from there? And people aren't stupid. Fans aren't stupid. If you're watching this video, you generally have a decent working knowledge of hockey at the very least. The salary cap was projected, this is from March 4th, 2020, so like a couple of weeks before what happened in the world. And the cap was supposed to go from $81.5 million to $84 million last season. And then what is going to be this year is going to be $88.2 million. And if that was the case, it's easier to see a path where investing that much money into four players could have been easier to navigate. But that's not the situation now. The cap is flat. That's just unfortunate. But like I said, fans, people watching this video, you're not stupid. You understand that, and you understand that that is unfortunate. Okay, what can we do to pivot from there, though? Well, you could trade one of those guys, but at the same time, you just invested a bunch of time and effort getting all of these guys signed, right? We can and we will. So I don't fault them for wanting to try it, and they did. They tried last season, and it didn't work. They tried again this year, and it didn't work. I don't blame them for wanting to try, right? Because if Matthews and Marner, if those guys could have scored in the last 2 years in the Columbus series or against Montreal, yeah, they advanced past the first round, and the narrative is completely different. Maybe we're talking about, they can't spend $40 million locked up into four players, otherwise they're not going to get past the second round. But at least that's the second round and not the first. And those guys are both 23, 24 years old. It's not unreasonable to say that they will mature and get better. They're phenomenal talents, obviously. One winning the Maurice Richard Trophy last year and on pace for over 65 goals, and the other finishing top 5 in scoring. But you understand that, right? And me telling you to be patient with a team that hasn't won in the last 54 years, that's not going to work, right? Preaching patience is just not going to work. So what strategies and avenues can we explore to maybe take advantage of some inefficiencies in the meantime while we're waiting for the salary cap to increase and also get some internal growth as well to provide these guys with the proper support that they need? Maybe you try to use your developmental staff and your medical staff to kind of squeeze every last ounce you possibly can out of free agents, players who have experienced some injuries earlier on in their career, to kind of rehabilitate them and get them going again. And that's what the Leafs did in 18-19 with a guy like Tyler Ennis. He did suffer a high ankle sprain, and that was aside from the concussion issues that he's had in his career and other injuries. It's a high ankle sprain. They're playing hockey, right? He was on pace for 19 goals that season, and he was signed for league minimum. Okay, there's an avenue that we can explore. Well, the captain came home. Is there anyone else that would like to on cheaper deals, maybe for about league minimum? And that's where Spezza comes into play, right? He's been one of my favorite Maple Leafs the last number of years. Dumpster diving is not a bad thing, and there are definitely more than just one kind of dumpster that you can go looking in to find value, right? Good players are good players. Okay, I got another one for you. Another avenue to exploit, especially over the last 2 seasons, have been players that have not been tendered qualifying offers. You take a look at what the Florida Panthers were able to do last season in getting Anthony Duclair on a 1-year deal for $1.7 million, Carter Verhaeghe for 2 years at $1 million. You take a look at their numbers, you take a look at the fact that they're just 25 years old, and it's like, okay, those are 2 quality players that they got for absolutely nothing almost. So between trying to use your medical and developmental staff to maybe kind of squeeze the last little bit out of guys who have experienced injuries earlier on in their careers, finding guys who want to take hometown discounts, veteran players like Jason Spezza, going out there and finding players that are in the prime of their careers that other teams just don't necessarily want or can't afford because of the situation that the league is in right now financially. Those are three really good avenues to round out your roster with cheap, good players. Again, I don't care where these guys are coming from. Value is value. Good players are good players. But this next thing, I think, has killed the Toronto Maple Leafs in more ways than having $40 million locked up into 4 forwards. The Maple Leafs' rebuild officially started in 2015, and that draft year, 2016 and 2017, the team hasn't gotten very much outside of the first round. Out of the 18 picks that they had outside of the first round in both 2015 and 2016, only 2 of them have established themselves as everyday NHL players. And if you want to include Adam Brooks in there because maybe he makes the team and plays full-time next season, then it's 3. It's still not good. 2018 was Kyle Dubas' first year as Leafs general manager and his first full year in control of the draft, and he did get Rasmus Sandin at 29th overall, and there still are some other players who may provide some value, but not necessarily top 6 forwards or top 4 defensemen. 2019 and 2020, it's kind of too early to critique these draft classes. These players are more than likely a year or 2 away from making an impact with the team, but I can see some guys developing into top 6, maybe even top 4 defensemen, or middle 6 forwards, maybe even top 6 forwards. Guys like Nick Robertson, Mikko Kokkonen, Mikhail Abramov, Nick Abruzze. Those last 2 guys are centers, and that's important. From 2020, Roni Irvinen and Toby Niemela, Dmitry Ovchinnikov. A lot of people are saying great things about him, even a guy like Axel Rindell. And yeah, they only had 3 picks in this year's draft, but at the same time, they picked 12 guys the year beforehand. That's 15 guys in the last 2 years, and you only get 7 picks originally, right? So in those 2 seasons, they would have drafted 14 if they would have kept them all. They got 15 in the last 2 years. And yeah, they only got 3 picks in this upcoming draft, but that's why they invited 8 guys to development camp that went undrafted. And you can be saying, yeah, woe is you. 8 guys just that went undrafted that nobody wanted. But what's the real difference between that and a 7th or 6th round pick? Maybe if you drafted better and developed better, maybe you'd have a couple of more guys on entry-level deals giving you value, right? Maybe you wouldn't have had to have held on to a guy like Justin Holl, and you could have kept someone like Jared McCann. Maybe you wouldn't have to rely on having Alex Kerfoot at $3.5 million or Mikheyev and Engvall at more than what they probably should be making. Maybe you could have developed one damn goalie over the last 6 years, and you wouldn't have had to have shelled out $3.8 million over the next 3 years for one. Young players and players who are on their entry-level deals, guys who are willing to take league min, even though they're worth more than that, are extremely valuable. And if you don't have, a steady influx, and what is, maybe 1 or 2 guys every year that are graduating from your minor league or your development program that can give you some NHL games, it's going to kill your team. It forces you to dumpster dive too much. It forces you to hold on to players for longer than what you should. And then even when you did draft a guy outside of the first round and he looks really promising and he's played over 200 NHL games, he's stalled with the team. And a guy like Travis Dermott, he hasn't taken any steps forward since his rookie year. I don't think anyone has ever disagreed that that may be too much money to give to 4 players. But at the same time, people were able to see different paths and different ways that might be okay in the end. They put themselves in this situation. Right? No, they didn't ask for the cap to stay flat. That wasn't a situation that they put themselves in. But now they've committed to it 2 years after the fact, knowing that it hasn't worked. So, like I've said previously, whatever happens at the end of this season, whether they win or they lose, because fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. That's a 2-strike system. I play baseball. That's a 3-strike system. I don't know if there is a 4-strike system that exists. It'll be deserved, no matter what happens next year. It's not just as simple as, he gave 4 forwards $40 million, fire him. No, there's layers to that, as we discussed in this video. And yeah, I can understand, right? It would be disappointing to spend all that time and all that effort getting all these players signed, and then now the salary cap is staying flat, so you don't have that to lean on anymore to just trade one of them afterwards. I think that would have been disappointing in a different way especially not having known the results, right, of the next 2 seasons. It's easy to say that that's what they should have done now in hindsight, but it would have been disappointing then in a different way. I said 2 weeks ago that I was going to do one video like this, that I was going to talk about everything that I thought was wrong with the team or areas that I would like to see them improve upon. It would have been really easy for me to come up here and just rip Kyle Dubas, rip Sheldon Keefe, and say that Marner and Matthews need to be better, or one of them need to be traded because the way that this team is built isn't working. That's not analysis. You come here to this channel, I would hope so anyway, expecting more perspective than just that. I said I wanted to do one video like this and then I was going to move on, and for my purposes and for my sanity, I can't just get up here and beat a dead horse every time. But I understand why people may have a hard time differentiating, if a good thing happens, being optimistic about it, because there are things that are looming over the team that are like big rain clouds kind of thing, and they're not going to lift until they actually get out of the first round or until we actually see some progress. So if you're angry or you're upset or you want people traded or fired, I understand where you're coming from, but I can't preface every conversation or every time I want to say something good about the team with all the reasons why there are those clouds hanging over it. I like to be optimistic. I like to make the most of things. So if you're not in that headspace, if you're not in that mood right now, I can understand why a lot of the things that I've been saying have been pissing you off lately. I can understand that. I can level with that. It's just, I can't get up here and beat a dead horse for the sake of the channel, the content, and my own sanity. It just would not be wise. So I do understand you, and I do hear you, and I do know where you're coming from. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Make sure to like the video if you did like it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, the next video that I want to do here on this channel is the off-season is moving really quickly. It's like less than 2 months until opening night and like a month away from training camp. I want to talk about the Morgan Rielly situation because we're getting to that point of the off-season where the Maple Leafs said that they were going to try to extend him or trade him. And there's been a lot of defensemen signed to really monstrous contracts. So we're going to talk about that more in depth the next time. Hope you guys are doing well as always. Take care.